Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Small Business Stories. I am your host, Dr. LL here, Loralyn Mears, founder of Steeris, and every week bringing you all kinds of folks from, well, just about the five corners of the globe and in all different kinds of industries and lanes. Well, today we've got Jason Fishman. He is the founder of Digital Niche Agency. And I don't know, no little giveaway or anything out there, but niche, right? Niche really makes the difference where you get into differentiators. And he helps their brands, all kinds of clients, improve their conversion performance. He looks at integrated marketing strategies around repeated customer touch points, building trust, long-term relationships, rather than those, one-off transactions that don't work for anyone. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I've been looking forward to this. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, we're excited about it because we always learn. Here, we're getting to that area, right? Where we've talked about marketing funnels and clicks from other folks, but where you dig into is that it's not a single transaction, right? One interaction. We need that repeat exposure so that we build that psychological connection and safety with, oh, yeah, this brand's okay. I could put my money there. We don't buy one-offs anymore. Is that true? Like, tell us what's going on. What's the lay of the land here in the space within marketing, within outreach? What's going on?
Absolutely. I think you nailed it there, where it's all about the lifetime value. And it's more touch points these days than years back for a conversion to occur. Audiences like to do their due diligence, their research. These AI tools allow us to take a deep dive into a brand and with a brief prompt and learn a lot more than we did 5, 10 years back just through a search engine. So you have to give the right pieces for these tools to read about you, your brand, your offering. There's more opportunity to do that ever with content, but it is more of that, it's been said before, customer journey, user journey, but that's what makes a stronger lifetime value. That's what gets you a more dedicated customer, client, fan to begin with.
So true. And in preparation for our interview here, I did a little research and it said on average, a typical buyer does 4 to 5 searches and looking at like, do I want this? Do I want that? Does the comparisons? And then here I thought this is really interesting. 1/3 of purchases are made without ever having direct contact with the brand.
A lot of interaction these days. You would assume it to be, a bit more, but 1/3. It's pretty crazy that that's the stat here today.
Yeah, because that information is available up front and we've got better tools to find it, to digest it. But there's also, I think it brings up, which is really like my first question here, how just having one single touch point, right, it can fail. And so business owners are assuming, right, okay, someone didn't buy immediately. Okay, then the marketing failed.
Mhm.
But I think customers need to understand that, and not just the customers, that they need to see that they need those multiple touch points, but that brands and businesses, this is your focus, your
Mhm.
clients, that they need to understand how many touch points it is, but one's not enough. Do they know that lesson yet? And what's the right number?
Sure. And the data, the analytics really tells the whole story. I was looking at one of our clients' reports last week, and I'm able to see that customer journey. I'm able to see they click through on this email newsletter. They click through on this article with a publisher that we had a partnership with this Meta ad, with this Google ad. One of the audiences that converted, one of the individuals, had over 43 visits to the offering page before they moved forward. So if you had given up early on and thought, hey, Facebook ads don't work, or newsletters aren't producing, you would have missed the mark on them. And that's just one of many across that audience segment.
Now, as a data science wonk, I might say that 43 interactions and repeat opens, repeat clicks, they're probably an outlier, right? Or is that the new average? What are we looking at, Jason?
If you have something exciting to share, if you're putting out headline worthy announcements on a weekly basis, which you should, because other brands are converting or are competing for those same conversions, that same mind share, that same visibility. So your marketing needs to be as strong, if not stronger than theirs, but it needs to be the repetition. I think back towards this old sales stat where it's, like under 10% of sales occur on the first touch, and then a small percent the second one. And it's really touch point 7 to touch point 12 that a sales rep was actually closing a deal. Meanwhile, it showed sales reps stopped following up. It was only so many of them that did, a follow-up beyond the first discussion, beyond the second, and less than 10% followed up more than 5 times. And I look at marketing as sales, but on a mass level, you're reaching millions of people in many cases at once versus just a one-to-one conversation. But the same principles are true.
It speaks to like where I'm going. Good segue here, like repetition, right, versus resonance. And
Mm.
so you said clients are showing up repeatedly. They want to consume the content because, well, every week if your blog or whatever it is, you're putting out something interesting. So they keep coming back week after week and you're building that trust and connection. But I think that that flip side of that, right, that resonance, is it that the content is just so compelling, right, that it's tapping hearts and minds of the prospective buyers, that that's actually what's working, not the repetition. What do you think?
It is definitely a matter of that emotion that comes out when that prospective audience member sees an ad, sees a piece of content. It could be compelling enough for them to take action and do so sooner. I find there still needs to be a follow-up because we're presented with so many different types of messaging and marketing and advertising on a daily basis. I heard a stat, over 60,000 ads that we see on a daily basis. And that
Oh,
would include every logo around you, from my drink to, all the different books on my table here. Those could all be considered advertising, but it's overload. Think of how much content we consume
uh,
scrolling through apps and emails and everything on a daily basis. It's hard to recall what we need to do, let alone what we want to do, and then further up the funnel, what we're considering to do, what we're aware of, and maybe we'll do. So I think more does have a real value point to it. Those 43 touch points, I'd rather see than 2 touch points, 3 touch points. It could be fatigue if there's not enough of a storyline, if there's not enough social proof and third-party
mhm.
validation and new updates to point to. But it is a blend across those, and I would rather over communicate versus under in today's day and age.
Now, where I want to get to and pull on is an area that I'm personally looking at. So I have flagged misinterpretation risk as the new threat to small businesses, right?
Yeah.
Because we didn't have enough already, right? So with this new threat that AI search, it's constantly interpreting and or misinterpreting what we're offering, what we're asking when we're searching, and should that entity, whatever that result is, be presented or not, right? It's making these decisions for us. And so do we need as brands to have not only that repetition in our messaging and the repetitivity of it, that it's frequent, like whatever the cadence is, once a week or whatever, so that we connect with people, but is it also because the interpretation is changing so quickly with these AI search tools that we've got to keep putting in the content so that we will be presented ultimately to the prospective buyer? Which is it? Is it interpretation changing, or we just need to see it a lot?
Interpretation is definitely changing. Need to see it a lot, but the right things. So I
Mm.
don't know if it's one or the other, but speaking to interpretation, what I would want to point out is we have assumptions going into a campaign as an agency. You mentioned DNA, my firm, but we know that data is what has to drive our decisions. So we need to cast a wide enough net of the audiences that we're targeting with an advertising campaign or anything where we have the ability to focus on who gets to see that content, that advertisement. And we need to have enough variance, enough A/B tests of the creative that they're presented with. This is true as well for search engine optimization, GEO, what AI platforms are finding. We need to see what's actually producing and showing up in the results there, and then create the next iterations of the content, of the messaging, of the visuals that we're putting together from there based on the tangible, measurable results that are coming out, not just what we like or we think looks good, even what we think what best represents the brand. We need to make sure these platforms are interpreting it correctly. We need to make sure the audiences are taking action when they see it and make shifts, make optimizations, manage it to a point of effectiveness from there.
Now you get into a lot of the data and look at all of this, right? I mean, that really
Oh
is
yeah.
the one of the specialties, your hallmarks, of your firm. And so can you pick apart and understand when there's inconsistent messages across multiple touch points? Or can you find out the difference again? Like it's a nuanced difference that maybe the message has just shifted slightly enough that the positioning sounds different, like it's being misinterpreted. Can you figure out what's going on, right? What the right problem is to solve?
To say the only way to measure is with numbers. If we're looking at those analytics, we want to basically paint the picture of an algorithm, a funnel taking audiences from awareness, consideration, intent, conversion for most of our campaigns, repeat conversion, advocacy, peer-to-peer marketing is the ultimate. And I want to look at the drop-off point from each of those stages. I want to look at the performance from one traffic source to the next and through a landing page, through a digital funnel. And the numbers are going to tell me where things are off. If I'm anticipating a stronger conversion rate, a good cost per acquisition for each new customer, each new user, each new audience member at the bottom, and it's way off, it's underproducing. It's not just a matter of going back to the top and saying, hey, we need something different here. Perhaps if we're not getting the visibility at the levels we want and the costs we want, but maybe around the creative, hey, we need to put some new variants. We need to put some new different videos together. What are we going to test out next? Which words are we going to flip around, like you said? Can we reduce? Is it too much copy and it's not even being fully consumed? But I'm able to look at it as that pipeline and seeing where things are getting stuck based on the percentages, based on the increments of how many people are getting through from one stage to the next, and then really focus at that level to determine what we're going to put in next to see a lift in performance at that stage.
I want to hit the flip side of that. So you're talking there about a lack of visibility, right? And the things that you're doing to increase that visibility. What about those brands that seem to be everywhere online,
Mm.
but then when you know their dirty little secrets, right? They're not converting into customers and getting the revenue. So what's missing? They got all that visibility, but it's not leading to conversion and consumers taking action. What's happening? What's going on?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know as many of the dirty little secrets, but if I did, if I knew, hey, I know this brand's revenue is down, I would probably be assuming they're trying to spike it by buying more advertising, by buying more placements, by buying their way into more revenue or audience growth, whatever they're playing for. I'm assuming if I keep seeing a brand everywhere that it's producing for them. I summarize marketing approaches into three words: test, optimize, scale. And if it's everywhere, if they've scaled it, I have to assume it's been optimized, it's producing for them. But you make a great point. What if they're advertising everywhere and still not seeing the growth numbers they need to? Maybe they're a publicly traded company. You could see their earnings. Again, would it be assuming that they're trying to do more and make a statement? Otherwise, I would feel that they're just going back to the same tools they've used in the past and expecting to see different results. When really a brand needs to be relevant, it needs to be speaking to topics that really matter to the target audience because it's not about the brand, it's about the individual. They're the hero in the story, right? How does the product solve their problems? How does it enhance their life? How does it make them even more prosperous as a hero? So it could be a disconnect from their target audiences. They could be going after the wrong audiences. They could have the wrong messaging. If I see a campaign underperforming, I break down the channels that they're using, maybe prioritize, which ones we want to do more of from there. But within each channel, the audiences, the creatives, and the funnel, being able to optimize any one of those stages. And it could be at the very top of, hey, this is the wrong audience, the wrong creative, the wrong offer. They may not have a good enough gauge on what's happening around them and in their ecosystem and should be doing a more thorough competitor audit. So what they're putting out is stronger than what other brands are seeing. I would tell you the conversion rate is the single biggest variable, and to spend more time on conversion rate optimization and what could be done to see a lift there, even decimals of percentage of increase there can mean the world of difference.
Oh, for sure. And then just one other thing, just related to this whole like, okay, they're really spending and they're trying to really like hack it, right? Is what people call it, like, oh, I'm going to hack visibility because everybody's hacking everything, right? I had one of my podcast gets on and he said, oh, they're hacking their mortgage. I said, well, how do you hack a mortgage? He said, well, you rent out a room. I'm like, well, I didn't know, right? Who knew? So hacking. But you look at some of the Super Bowl ads where companies have literally bet the farm. You know, you think of E-Trade, you think of Cricket Mobile, Mint Mobile. They
Mhm.
were nowhere. Nobody had ever heard of them. And then they spent 6 million for, you know, a 10-second ad or whatever it was. And then they became a household name. So does it make sense as a strategy sometimes to just go all in? Or is that too risky in today's era? What do you think?
I worked on campaigns early on that didn't have a strong enough product offering, wasn't enough trust around it, and I felt they could drive all the traffic in the world and still not see the type of performance that they were looking for to hit their goals. I often like to start at lower levels, see a good return, and then ramp things up. Does more volume help? Absolutely. I would say you need, a baseline conversion rate before even considering to take it to these larger and larger and larger stages. I would even look at Super Bowl ads as a branding placement. I wouldn't necessarily be looking to measure the direct response return on it. I know some brands do, but I think they have more aggressive DR direct response channels running simultaneous with that, and it's more of a conquesting, more of a statement type of play to be on the Super Bowl. But I know you're talking about just that marketing blitz, that blast in general. I think it needs to be done in a calculated way. Otherwise, that marketing investment may not show the return a brand's looking for, whether it's their numbers or brand lift at the end of the year, or whether it's sales, e-commerce that day, leads, B2B, what's occurring right then. I would also point out it could be a long, long journey, a long trail. Some of those brands you've mentioned, have had poor quarters, they've had poor years, but they keep doing it, they keep investing into it, and they've earned that market share accordingly. So you could argue a large enough marketing campaign, but for long enough, even without the best funnel, could still produce. But I would say they both have to work concurrently. They both have to be improved on an ongoing basis. How do you get a better conversion rate while finding ways to reach more of the right people?
Oh, and AI, right? That's a good segue for AI in my next
Sure.
question. AI is making the ability for any of us, right, to create gobs and gobs of content, absolutely spread our outreach. Now, for good or for bad, right? Good, bad, right or wrong. We don't know where that's going, right? Some of the AI is for good, some of the AI is for bad, and it's not working, right? But are these meaningful touch points going to become more important, or they're just going to be harder to create because we're inundated by work slop?
Well, I think it's all a matter of who's behind the wheel, right? If you're running the AI, if I'm running the AI, I would be very excited to see what those marketing campaigns look like. If it's someone without marketing experience looking to use these tools and accepting the first draft of the marketing plan that they're getting back, maybe even skipping a marketing plan, which is a massive red flag as a marketer to look at. But to then look at content, to look at outreach messaging, to look at ads that haven't had that lens on it, that is 5, 10, 20 plus years deep of experience. You kind of see things before they happen. I would be, concerned on what is going to be produced there. The same as I would for another profession. If someone wanted to perform an operation on me tomorrow using directions from AI, it's like, let's hope everything is being communicated to you properly, and you're not going to really know if something's going on mid-procedure. So why would you take your marketing campaign, which speaks to the growth, the life support of a brand, and just throw it to someone who hasn't had that type of operation before? You mentioned AI slop. Good AI usage, you should not be able to tell it was AI that put it together. I mean, if it's obvious that that's going to affect things, unless you're playing into it, unless it's designed to be, in fashion of, hey, this is a funny little take using AI. Unless it's abundantly clear you're saying it's AI, but that's not the case for most of these campaigns. They're trying to uh, cut corners. I'm far more interested in using AI for quality, things that are more engaging. They produce more of a response versus just saving time. So, yeah, I think it's actually going to become more of an annoyance. I think the more we feel like we're being contacted by someone's AI versus an actual individual or an ad campaign, a marketing piece, an article. I don't want to read an AI article. I don't really want to listen to an AI song. I think it's neat. I'll enjoy it for 30 seconds, but I'm not gonna, play it on my next road trip. I'm not gonna, sit on the beach and read an AI book. I'd rather see what a human has to think. So if it's being used to enhance what, a thought leader is doing, okay, cool. If it's just being used by a novice and being submitted as top level work, top level marketing, I think it's gonna fail.
Well, a couple of examples, just speaking directly to that. One of the big four consulting firms in early of 2026 here got called out for submitting a $400,000 invoice and it was AI work slop. And so people are like, whoa, wait a minute. This took your AI tool like, okay, maybe a couple of hours to put together and you're charging 400,000? I don't think so. So they
Right.
got called out for that. And then on the topic of books, in the same way, in addition to all the business books I read, and I read a lot because I love it, I like to read some not business books sometimes, right?
Got to
Other
break it up.
genres,
Absolutely.
right? And one of my guilty pleasures is celebrity nonsense. So I'm reading a couple of celebrity autobiographies, and they're AI. They're all written by AI. And you can find the patterns and just the consistencies across them. And I'm thinking, wow, that's it's such a letdown. Yet I also just finished by John Bacon, The Gales of November, which is the story about the 50th anniversary of the sinking of the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. And it's historical nonfiction, and it was fantastic. 480 pages. I was glued, and we all know how the story ends. The 29 sailors go down in Lake Superior, but you didn't want it to end because it was so good. And I miss that. And where I'm going with this, and the question is, where I study with misinterpretation risk, are we at a greater risk of the AI tools misinterpreting what we're putting out there because we're trying to put so much content out there across so many channels that we're actually amplifying the potential of becoming invisible and misinterpreted rather than just sticking to one channel and one message? What are your thoughts on that? This is where we're headed, right, in the world?
Yeah, it's unfortunately where we're headed. I was watching a YouTube video the other day, about a minute in, it was about health and different diet and exercise throughout the day. And I found it really interesting. And they mispronounced a word. And I suddenly realized, hey, this is AI. Meh, and I removed myself from the video. I then saw an individual on the next video talking to me, shorter video, 10 minute, but very personable. He was going through some of the exercises and showing some of the benefits with all the trackers for running and walking and jogging and what was better. I've been walking a lot every day accordingly on top of my workouts. But I look for that connection. I want to hear someone else's insights. I want to read someone's full book. I have a lot of friends' books sitting right here. And I read them from the end because I know the person. I felt like it was them I was speaking to. That's how each marketing channel should feel. I don't know if it's just one channel. I believe, three channels, five channels. I mentioned strategy earlier. I'm big on having a good detailed algorithmic roadmap of a marketing plan to launch a campaign. There's a model I've built called the 8 point plan. Industry
Mhm.
overview, competitor marketing audit is the second section, and I spend so much time there. I want to know exactly what the target audience is that I haven't created yet. That's section three, but that the target audience I'm going to be going after are seeing today. What's coming across their desk? What's showing up in their social feeds? On their television sets, on the billboards near them. How are these brands that I'm going to be competing against obtaining market share today? I want to know everything that they're doing, what they're sending out as email newsletters, which publishers are talking about, which influencers. I'm getting a good sense of where I want to go. if I could understand the conversation between the other brands and the audiences that are converting today. Then when I move to target audiences, I'll personify them. I'll give them a fictional name, a picture. I want to know where they go online. I want to know what they do on the weekends, who influences them for their purchases, B2B or B2C. So by the time I get to marketing channels, which is part of what you're talking about here with marketing channel, I've got a pretty good idea of where to reach them online. I may need to prioritize whether I'm working with a publicly traded company, or whether I'm working with a solopreneur or growth stage company. They're going to want to see performance. They're going to want to see me prioritize the channels. Maybe we're just focusing on one, maybe it's a few. But if I say I'm going to do these 15 channels and right out of the gate, I'm likely going to lose their attention a bit. They may not fully understand everything that's going on. They may trust me and just say, yeah, go for it, do it. But I believe in, locking arms with the client, working with them to hit each of the milestones, each of the goals. So I'll prioritize from there. I'd probably say 3 to 5 channels, even just combining some of the organic content channels with ads. One ad channel you get there, but it is good to at least weigh out, hey, where do I want to reach these individuals with paid advertising? Where do I want to reach them with organic content marketing? How do I continue to foster that community from there? So I do believe it's a few channels. You could just go with what's working from there. You should test out new things on top of that. You don't want to be handcuffed if performance drops on one of those mediums for you. You don't want to think, hey, we're just going to do less business. We're going to have less growth over the next month, quarter, year. You want to have some different options. So I think that's why it's important to test different touch points. But if you see those channels that are moving for you, lean into it, do that bigger blitz. I've seen founders act very aggressively there. Once they're able to see the right returns, once they're able to see the right responses, really own that channel.
A couple of things in there. Let me pull on. So you talked about the friends books that you have. You had some connection, right? So that's why they're there. That's why you read them and you wanted to dig in. And you talk about ideal customer, right? Persona, the ICPs, right? Do they fit in? And finding that connection so that that target audience makes sense. So you invest after you've confirmed, right? This is the right audience.
Yes.
That said, now with your own organization here, talk to us about niches and finding that right audience so that you're connected and people go, oh, yeah, 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 this is what I want. This is who I want to work with because, digital niche agency always works with this sort of audience and helps build trust. Talk to us about your decisions around that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could mention it for our clients and how we do it for their target audiences and position them as the best in the world at that one thing. Per the nature of your question, I would tell you as a marketing agency, it's very important to have a specialization, a
Sure.
niche, something that you're known at for being the absolute best at, or if not one of the top. And I work with a lot of growth stage companies. I found fundraising to be a common theme among that clientele, where it was always part of the discussion of, hey, we're doing a new business plan. Can you work on the marketing section with my team? Can you work on the pitch deck that we're going to be presenting to our finance partner, to our investors? This campaign, we're going to scale the results with more capital, but we need to submit a report. Can you put that together for us to present to the investor? Can you actually participate in that investor meeting? We really like the way you speak about this. So I would fly out and be in a suit and talk about, talk about how the company is going to grow. And I realized, hey, this is beyond just creating ads and content, and I'm able to serve a value here. I was then presented with some different laws, some exemptions that allow for the digital marketing campaigns I run to be pointed towards investors. Uh, some of them, it's just high net worth investors. It's a Reg D 506C campaign. Then there's regulation crowdfunding, which allows us to target anybody, and brands can raise up to $5 million using these vehicles. Regulation A plus, you can raise up to 75 million. Public companies can use it for priced rounds. Companies can use it as a vehicle to do a direct listing. So I was basically thrown into this because I succeeded on one campaign. I was able to use data partnerships that I had to reach very specific investors. The campaign produced millions of dollars and had very light ad spend. And we were introduced to more companies issuing these investment opportunities. So I didn't go to school to become a investment crowdfunding or even investor marketing expert, but I continued to gravitate with the needs, the landscape, and began offering content marketing, advertising, outreach campaigns to investors to raise capital for our clients. And using meta ads, using all the things that we're good at. Data collection. I've built my own databases of individuals who participate in these. We've worked on over 500 campaigns like that. Continue working with those companies towards their growth milestones afterwards, towards their e-commerce sales, user acquisition of their apps, B2B companies, B2B, SaaS at that. Some of our largest have been there. We've raised hundreds of millions of dollars using digital marketing and see, very strong return on ad spends. I'm able to calculate on these retail campaigns where the investments are smaller, a 10x, a 20x, some cases a 30x return on advertising spend because it's a higher transactional value than maybe a $50, $200 order I would see for some of the e-commerce clients we were working with. So even at a decent cost per acquisition of each new investor, each new user, there's actually a term used in the space of investomer, because you're able to target your customers, have them come in and be investors. You're able to target future customers, have them invest first and then be customers. It's a very powerful growth tool beyond just the capital. But by leaving a broad enough net towards what we're doing at first, by seeing where we were getting the most traction, by then seeing where we were producing the best results, and then positioning ourselves accordingly, we're looked at as a top agency in the world for that. If not one of the top, there are a few other good out there. I like to be modest, but at the same time, there are other agencies who do this with specific types of law firms. There are ones that do it for specific types of mobile apps or social communities. So once we found our niche, our identity, our story, everything about us changed. The way we operate on a daily basis, the way we're bringing in research, the way we're building these audiences and these tools and relationships with publishers and influencers and people who could support many of our clients, not just one, it changed radically overnight.
It's product market fit,
Mhm.
right? Found it. Here's our niche. As Tony Robbins always says, right? The riches are in the niches. And
Yeah.
there you go, right? You get that all dialed in and lined up. Now, Jason, where can people find you online or learn more about Digital Niche Agency? Where do they go?
Digitalnicheagency.com. DNA is our website. YouTube.com/ at digital niche agency. You can see playlists for my podcast, Test Optimize Scale, as well as our educational series. We do a monthly presentation deck and templates and all different types of tools you could use for your own marketing campaigns. That's in our playlist as well too. So I'd point you to our site and to our YouTube channel. Don't hesitate to reach out with any marketing questions as well too. We always welcome a warm growth conversation.
Excellent. Now, signature question of the show as we wrap up here.
Let's do it.
So, first of all, where are you dialing in from?
Marina Del Rey, California.
Okay. Now, assuming that's home, if we were to look
Yes.
in that closet of yours and there was some footwear in there that personified who you, Jason Fishman, are and why that footwear, shoes, boots, whatever it is, just speaks volumes about you, your personality, your values, whatever it is. Why is there the connection to that footwear?
Well, my office, my house is down the street. But in there, I have many different shoes. There's two I'll point to. One are Hoka's because they're comfortable. I could have 20,000 plus steps in a day and not feel it. I'm more focused on the function and the value for my body than just the looks these days. The other are Vans. I grew up here in Southern California, skateboarding, snowboarding. I have a lot of friends in those industries, have a lot of exciting trips throughout the year that have to do with those sports. I can wear them to a business meeting, believe it or not. They're clean, they look good. I can wear them hanging out with my friends, and I love that. I think it explains a bit of who I am.
Oh, I love that. And FYI, if anyone's curious, more than 350 times I've asked that question to our guests over the years, and about 80% of the founders and entrepreneurs I talk to always say some form of sneaker.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just it's the go-to, right? Versatile, supportive, comfortable, durability, right? You can get it done 20,000 steps a day because we're always like running and hustling and all of that. Not too many people I hear saying like, oh, 3-inch stilettos or, whatever else, right? It's a, no, not happening. All right. So with that, Jason Fishman, founder of Digital Niche Agency, thank you so much for being on our show today.
Loralyn, this has been great. Thank you. Really enjoyed speaking to everybody. Appreciate you having me on.